touch on what is the subject of investigations in what Farah Maalim said yesterday, but one of the other things he intimated on the program was that if the government was actually committed to ending terror attacks and dealing with the Somali question in the country appropriately, then they would bring back into the top hierarchy of security Kenyan Somalis. For instance, Major General Hussein Ali, who he referred to yesterday, saying at his time as police commissioner, the northern part of the country had never seen so much peace and stability. Do you think he made a valid point?
No. I think he has ethnicized the whole operation, and he thinks that by bringing in the Somali, that solves the problem. And again, he's pushing the agenda for the Somali. I don't think that is the point. All Kenyans who have the training have the right to participate in security operations so long as they have the correct training. They could be of Somali origin, they could be of any other origin. So long as they have the right, the qualification, they should be allowed to do the job. But the moment you say let the Somali go there, the next time we have another problem in Central Province, you will say let us have the Kikuyu go there. Then when you have a problem in Luo Nyanza, you say let's have the Luo go there. We are going to destroy our country. So I don't support that. It is actually very pedestrian thinking. But he's a big lawyer, but I don't know why he's thinking like that.
All right, let me come to you, Makodingo, because part of that story we've just seen has also, of course, reported on the fact that one woman who was to be deported did pass away. I want to read you an excerpt from the International Crisis Group, and they have published a report called Losing Hearts and Minds in Kenya, and they say, and I quote, "Now as the makeshift detention center in Nairobi's Kasarani Stadium begins to empty with more than 80 Somalis deported direct to Mogadishu and more expected to follow, we have to ask, what is the ongoing operation achieving? Not necessarily a safer Kenya, but an experience of persecution that risks only being of benefit to the Al-Shabaab." What do you think?
I think that's fairly lopsided, a lopsided view in my opinion. We've cried for government to do something about insecurity for a long time. When the bombings took place in Isili, in 2 days consecutively, the person killing himself while making a bomb, and then another 6 people dying, we cried for government to do something. But when government does something, we are just criticizing, not giving them an alternative. I would have wished that the people who are criticizing Operation Usalama Watch were offering alternatives in terms of, if government should not go to Isili, or wherever it is that they are going to flush out these illegals, then what do we expect them to do? For me, I think they have to do this. They had to do this. Probably we need to involve a lot of a few human rights defenders to, oversee some of the operations that take place in these camps. But government had to do something.
Paul, you're a communications expert. We have been faulted as the media by the National Steering Committee on Media Monitoring in as far as giving coverage to, they say, quote, a certain section of politicians who are then ethnicizing this debate or making it take a religious angle. And of course, you have seen what is happening in as far as the real fears that perhaps the operation is not minding human rights. What should the government be doing in terms of a communications perspective to really paint a picture that this operation is purely about security, if in fact it is?
I think it's not in doubt that everybody agrees that security has, been a major issue in this country. And like Makodingo says, people have been asking, what is the government going to do? Now, Usalama Watch is an interesting initiative that they've come up with, but there's a lot of opaqueness in what is really happening. We're seeing one side of the story. I would expect that as part of what I would call a wider counterterrorism communication strategy, then they would be able to bring in even the media as, partners in this whole operation, and be able to disseminate information. For example, tell us, this operation that began a couple of days ago, we have netted A, B, C, D. Among the people who are rounded up, the foreigners who are rounded up, maybe we have got a couple who are suspects, and we're taking them to
To be fair,
so
to be fair to government, they have done that. I think the question of access to Kasarani without any prohibitions may be the bigger question in as far as media engagement is
absolutely,
concerned.
but it does not stop at just access to Kasarani. Its counterterrorism communication is a wide. It's not limited to just one aspect. We need to see. So, after Kasarani, where are these guys going to, and what is being done? So there needs to be ongoing communication, and I think also the media has a responsibility to show the other side of the debate also.
For performance of the institutions that have been put in place, but the blind side of Kenya's problems is that the judiciary now specializes in protecting unlawful activities in this country, and I think with the time we need now to probably look for a way where the whole judiciary should be dissolved, and then a fresh mandate is given to people who are interested in protecting this country. What they have done is they have set up a crisis that is likely to burn so many fingers. They cannot do that. The process that removed Wambora was legislative. It was not a judicial process. It was a legislative process undertaken by the MCS, ended up in Senate, and Wambora cannot take over his seat again. So this judiciary, either it has incompetent fellows or they deliberately want to do things that are not very good and probably destroy this country. And for me as a person, I think that if we go like this in the next 5 years, everybody will not like to look at a judge or a magistrate in this country.
Dr. Makadengo.
Embu was no governor. As far as I'm concerned, and as far as the legal and constitutional process is concerned, Wambora was impeached through a legal process and a very fair process as that. He got a fair chance to be heard. He was proved to have committed
Let's
crimes.
go back to the fact that the court is saying that there was an order in place that was ignored. And then they went ahead to impeach him, ignoring a court order. So on the one hand, you're arguing about the legitimacy of the work of the Senate, but you're not talking about the legitimacy of the work of the courts. They can, in fact, stop the process.
The court was fairly incompetent because in making a ruling, the Speaker, Kariuki Mate of Embu, did say that by the time they were going to session, there was no valid court order before him. In fact, he went ahead and said that if there was a valid court order before him, he would not have debated it, he would have allowed the court process to proceed. The Senate, the Speaker is on record saying by the time they began the process of impeachment, there was no valid order before him that could have stopped the process. And by the time it got to the Senate, the process had already started anyway. Now, the bigger question is, does the judiciary have power to stop Parliament or county assemblies from doing their work? Separation of powers is clear. They should let the legislative process take its own course and end. As far as I'm concerned, Wambora was impeached and nothing has changed. Now, there is an interesting argument Wambora is bringing that he can't be impeached immediately. Now, if we agreed that the court process was final, that the court did indeed nullify the impeachment, then the impeachment didn't take place, which means there is no need to wait for 3 months. There was no impeachment. This will be the first one. So exactly. So there is no need for waiting for 3 months. They can actually impeach him tomorrow, and they'll still do the same process.
I think the crisis also is this, Anne, that the head of the judiciary, in fact, the Chief Justice, should call a meeting on Monday or after Easter and ask his judges and the magistrates, why are people disobeying orders that you give? It is an expression of lack of confidence in the judiciary. It is waning. And if they think that it's going to come back just through some prophetess, it is not going to come back.
But two wrongs don't make a right, Prof. Even though Kenyans may or may not have confidence in the judiciary, that surely cannot be an excuse to disregard orders.
But it is a desperation because they have made a series of rulings that have really shocked even the people who have training in the law. So therefore, people have resorted, including even government. They have done a few things that really don't make sense, and sometimes government has also been a victim. They have done rulings about trade unions in a very, very weird way. You know that so-and-so has done something wrong in a trade union. You go to the employers, you collude with employers, and you don't protect the workers. You give injunctions, a series of them. So,
and to make it worse,
let me just go back to Prof's point. Perhaps what one would be concerned with is the fact that you're saying, if the court makes an order that we don't like, that shocks us, that we didn't expect, then we have every right to
we
ignore
are looking
it.
at the process, Anne. The process is that if today Makodingo or Achar took me to court and wanted an injunction, you call a meeting of both of us. That is the common procedure across the world. You call Achar and myself to give our testimony about the case, and you see whether I have a case to stop to give an injunction. If I don't have, you dismiss. But if Achar alone walks to court and gets an injunction and you have not heard my story, that is incompetence.
Now to make it worse, for the people of Embu, the bigger problem is the Senate finally allocates money for the devolved funds, the national share. The Senate will refuse to allocate money to a county that as a governor they have impeached. What are they going to do? Is the judiciary going to give the people of Embu money to run their affairs for the next 1 year?
Interesting. In the past week, the First Lady made global and local headlines for her efforts in running the 42-kilometer London Marathon. Joining our panel, as you've seen him before, is Paul Achar. He's, of course, a communications and branding expert. And she's received so many accolades, including on this show from the two gentlemen adjacent to you. But the question is, beyond the actual charity work that she is doing and the impact that it will have on maternal health and child mortality, will her work go beyond that? Does it affect anything else in Kenya?
I think it does. You know, perhaps I would like to begin by saying that she's a fresh breath of air. This country has definitely looked forward to a First Lady who comes across as authentic, a First Lady who comes across as seemingly connecting. But think about what she's talking about, maternal health. I thought about it and I said, well, look, I'm a man. What do I know about maternal health? Let me talk to some women around me and hear exactly what their opinions are. It's interesting that they took it personally. Every woman knows somebody who may have lost a child, somebody who may have experienced personal loss, and it was extremely personal. So if you look at it from the wider perspective of her husband's agenda, then I think they're trying. She's trying to connect her initiative with the women of this country. And it was interesting that one of the women I talked to, and even on social media, commented and said, you know, we could vote for the husband just because of the First Lady. So I think there is an agenda just beyond the initiative that she's undertaking at the moment.
Which is interesting because you started by saying that she looks authentic, and then now you're saying that there's an agenda as well.
Look, when I talk about authentic, I'm talking about her own personal attributes that enable her to connect with people. And a lot has been talked about in different quarters. Think about it. When was the last time we saw a public figure in this country with silver hair? And we have public figures who are over 70.
With
very dark hair. You know, so those are some of the things that people are looking at and saying, well, this lady is extremely authentic. Now, is she working under a particular strategy? I believe there is a strategy in place, but she comes across as extremely authentic and being able to connect.
Yeah, let me come to you, Makodingo, because he's mentioned that the fact that she can connect may gain the president some goodwill. Do you think it will translate into real political mileage at all?
Politically, I actually think, first of all, what the work she's doing is great. Unlike Paul, I actually have quite a lot of experience with maternal and child health, especially the mortality part of it. You know, I've had history. I lost my sister to postpartum hemorrhage. I watched 2 of my siblings die in my arms when they were young of malaria, things that are avoidable. So to that extent, I actually understand. I think she should go on. The problem is, politically, is she's dealing with something that is a core mandate of government. It is the core mandate of government to provide maternal and child health for every woman and every child in this country. Her going to run the world over for it, when she could just run around her house and convince her husband to allocate more money for health, for me it's good publicity for her, good publicity for the cause, but it refocuses our attention on his government's inability to provide the basic needs and basic services, and healthcare now is a basic right.
I
under the
suppose the
Constitution.
flip side of that argument would be that it complements her husband's efforts. The government has already made maternal care free in the country, so that it's not pointing at a glaring problem of government, but augmenting it.
But if you look at the budget allocations this year, in fact, health is even getting less money than it did. The government made a commitment in Bamako many years ago, nearly 20 years ago now, to increase allocations to health to 15% of the budget. We've actually never surpassed 7%. We keep reducing it by year. In fact, when devolution came, we reduced it further to nearly 3.4%. That is not encouraging. She should, other than lobby the rest of us to join her in the cause, she should make a better job at lobbying her husband and our government to allocate more resources, because maternal deaths and child deaths are not just a matter of the having a mobile clinic. It is also accessibility. You can have a mobile clinic that can't even reach those people. The story of my sister, there was a hospital, a health center, but they couldn't access it because the roads were impassable. So there has to be a comprehensive strategy towards looking at maternal and child health, in a manner that addresses all the basic problems that bring forth these problems that she's now trying to address with Beyond Zero. So good work, but the government needs to do more.
I'd like to, perhaps also, say something. Really sorry for, it's quite your story. But Beyond Zero is part of a wider initiative. I mean, if you look at the overall plan of the First Lady, and I was looking at in December 2013, she launched a 5-year strategic plan that would focus on maternal health. She went to Addis Ababa and talked about reducing HIV, mother-to-child transmission, and also, so it's a 5-year plan, but it seems as though we have focused a lot more on Beyond Zero as a foundation. But there's other initiatives that should be and which will be unfolding. According to the strategic plan, which I was looking at, say 2014, that is the focus, but there's still 4 more years of her strategic plan. So talking about policy, perhaps, in my view, this is a good initiative that can complement policy initiatives. And maybe, who knows, perhaps within the strategic plan, there's initiatives, policy initiatives that would be able to assist and get something going within the healthcare sector.
I want to go back to Professor on the same question that I asked Makodingo. Does her action complement the president's work? Do you think it will gain him any popularity?
You see what she's doing. My interpretation, my opinion of what the first lady is doing is that she knows that the husband took power in a very contested environment, and that he had a few problems of international nature, and he even acknowledged in some of his discussions that he had a problem and he will deal with it. So there was an image crisis, and we don't want to pretend over that when the president took power. The first lady knows that knows what the president can do and what the president can't do. And she has undertaken to breathe in a new chemistry in the presidency so that it is soft for the eye to look at. And that is what she's doing. And then the second thing that the first...
Previously it was?
No, of course, that we are talking facts, and we know that this is really what happened. And now, those who didn't believe in the presidents of Uhuru Kenyatta, she is recruiting them through what she's doing. But there is a more important thing that I can talk about. The first lady, in my opinion, is also developing her own career. And she wants not to be looked at through the eyes of the president. In my opinion, she could be a realistic presidential candidate in the future. So really the first lady is also trying to see how much. If you look at what happened in London, the way people were going around her, in fact the president looked like just one of the spectators, but she could beat the president on an election in London. If they asked attract. Who do you vote for between Margaret and Uhuru? The people are likely to vote for Uhuru because she was the person attracting. She was the one attracting people more than the president. So what she's doing is also she's building an independent image that if come 2017, maybe she could resist opposing the president, but 2030, but 2023 she can easily also offer. And when she offers, she will have a history behind her. So this is what is happening with the first lady, in my opinion.
Well, hold on. First of all, I want to. Wait, hold on. Calm down, Professor, please. I want to rebuke my panel kindly, because if she does or doesn't harbor political ambitions, I'm not sure what the laughter is about. Maybe she does.
Why do you think she's
doing
everything
wrong
for
with
the
that?
husband?
Because Paul, you had the heartiest laugh. What do you think be wrong with that?
Our first lady is a professional woman in her own right, qualified as I think her educational background is a degree in education. So, as opposed to choosing to stand pretty behind just her husband, she has decided to pick up specific causes which, in a sense, I don't think she has. I don't read political ambition at all. I think that would be extremely far-fetched.
How can it?
No, it is.
No, but okay. I suppose the point that I am making is that history proves that does happen. You've seen it with the Clintons. We saw it in Argentina as well. So it wouldn't necessarily be something.
This guy is
such a wild imagination. It has happened the world over. Perhaps it may not be what she wants. So what do you think?
But you've realized that she's not been talking politics. She's hardly. The only opportunity that she got and was thrust on the platform to discuss politics was the last rally, campaign rally, where the microphone was thrust on her by her husband, and she politely declined. She could not be able to talk politics.
But her actions are speaking perhaps louder than words.
She's not talking politics, but she's doing politics. If you look at what she's doing, if, for example, one day she decides that she wants to be our president, she will say, one of the things I have always held dear to my heart is healthcare. And she will say, I have done this in the past. Try me in the economy. Try me in other places. I will do it. I'm not saying that she's doing that, but I think she's also working hard to be an independent woman away from the president. That can complement the presidency in a way. It can complement the presidency, but it can also build her own image. But these guys who are looking at the first lady's actions in terms of the husband, this is a different terrain. I don't think you can do that. You are reducing her to somebody who just wants to do everything for the husband. The husband might have given her space also to do her own things, and she can also give the husband the space to do other things. But what she knows is that she's also an independent human being who can do things differently.
Mark.
No, this is preposterous. In fact, I actually think
you cannot argue like that.
What's preposterous?
I actually think I think it is fair. I think it is fair to give the First Lady the benefit of the doubt that she's just genuinely concerned about pregnant women and newborns.
Isn't that a political issue?
Now, no. It is a everything is political. That doesn't mean that our political ambition. She can't. Have you seen her on stage? She could hardly give a speech.
Let's try to put this in context. How many 50-year-olds do you know who would run 42 kilometers? You know, put it further into context. The distance between Nairobi and Thika is 45 kilometers. She did 42 kilometers. Now, I believe to have done that, she may really believe in what she's saying. I really...
look, she could look... Politics could not have drove her to 42 kilometers. Passion cooled. Passion and belief could have taken her to 42 kilometers.
Professor, I know you want to make a comment in terms of the international politics, so let me just steer you in that direction because you started by saying, but
now
she did
there's
this.
a way I've not finished.
Hold on.
No, you can't.
I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. I truly do. But let me make this point because you're talking about international politics around it and the fact that she chose to do this race in London.
She's doing this thing in London. If you go to the social media and you look at the reactions, she's an important brand for this country. And even some of the people who think bad things about the Republic, she's the leading ambassador for Kenya. In fact, we have refused to turn our athletes into ambassadors, brands that can bring millions of shillings into this country. The First Lady has gone out on her own and finally done something that a 50-year-old person might not want to do. And the people have a different opinion about Kenya. They think that there are Kenyans that they had never known they exist. So really, the person who has gained most from this is the citizens of this country and the presidency. We now have a group of people within the international community that can receive us, embrace us, because they think we stand for different causes. Kenya is not just about about people fighting. Kenya is not about terrorism. She switched off from the normal things that people talk about in Kenya and marketed the republic in a very different perspective.
I've said this before. If you condemn the Jubilee government for everything else, you can't condemn them for foreign policy. Foreign policy, I will give them an A.
So are you agreeing with me?
They have done. No, I'm agreeing with you. Relax. You can't point at me and ask me if I agree with you.
You're not appointed, but you're not appointed.
Oh, is that a Thank you.
But most importantly, though, the international community is the biggest funder of healthcare in this country, the largest by far. What she has done by going to London and putting us on the international map is to appeal to a lot of those funders to bring us more money to fund maternal and child health. Yeah, for me, only the country can gain. I mean, she could probably gain, her husband could probably gain, but we gain more as a country if these people come and support this cause that she has. Now, going to London was political genius in terms of foreign policy, in terms of exposure. Because the London Marathon, other than Boston, is the largest marathon in the world, most watched and everything. So in terms of foreign policy, in terms of impact that it had, I don't care whether we spend 100 million shillings to take the delegation there. I have a feeling that in the long run, the country will benefit far much more from funding and from...
All right, gentlemen, Prof, you talked about all the local and possibly international accolades she has received for her efforts. What would you like to see her do with that clout?
She should look around and start marketing Kenya, to make the international community understand Kenya properly, because some people don't know about Kenya. You remember, if you go to the United States today and you ask young kids in school and ask them, where is Kenya? They will, like their president said one time, where is Nigeria? And he said, where is Africa? And then he said, Africa is in Nigeria. But that was Bush Jr. So really, what we want is somebody who can tell the world the Kenyan story, so that that Kenyan story can be understood. And as a result of that, also draw the attention of the international community to some of the challenges we face in this country that we can't solve alone as a nation. For example, the problem of poaching. Let the international community know that our animals, our wildlife is endangered. The problem of managing our own diversity, the challenges we face, how can we do it? So let the international community come in and also give a contribution. And also the problem of the issue of solving conflicts within this region. So she has a lot of things, and even she can market, accompany sportsmen who have done very well, and market the republic, attract funding for different projects in this country. I think very many people would want to associate with her, using that international cloud to be part of the problem-solving process that we want our country to undertake.
Paul, let me put it to you, because you're a communications expert. What if her preference is not to take to platforms and make elaborate speeches? How does she do what he's suggesting?
Well, I think she can still directly go to the people. She doesn't need to necessarily go on and give high sounding on the stage. But you know, Prof has talked about her role from an international perspective. I'd like to look inwardly within our borders. What can she be able to further articulate and push certain agendas? One, we're looking at family values. We're seeing for the first time, you know, the president turning up to hug his wife at the finish line of a race. It's communicating something.
Did it warm your heart?
It definitely did, and a lot of other people also within the country. So she can be able to push the agenda of family values. She can also be able to push the agenda that, look, a girl can also be a professional, and in their own right. We've had debates on the girl child in this country, and here is a lady who can be able to push that further. So there's things that she can be able to do within our borders. She also has a background in education. You know, she can be able to further champion the cause of education in this country. So there's a lot that she can do within our borders.
The same question to you, Dr. Makodingo, as you make your final comment.
I think she's doing a lot already. If she focused on Beyond Zero and focused on getting more resources and more focus, especially nationally for it, it could go a long way. I don't think picking, if she could have picked devolution, you know, maybe convince the national government to support devolution more, I would have been happier. But I seriously think that she should do that 42-kilometer dash, do it around her house a couple of times, and probably extend it to State House when there is a cabinet meeting, so that they can convince those people in cabinet to allocate more money to counties to fund healthcare. I would be a very happy person, and I think she can do it. I mean, she has clout, and she has the advantage that none of us has, that she spends every day with the president. So,
yeah. To be fair, I did attend one of her events where she, in fact, was lobbying the first ladies of the counties to support her on that initiative.
And I'd like to say something about like Beyond Zero. I know it's part of a wider initiative, like I said, a strategic plan of over 5 years, but it seems to be limited to the elite circles as it is right now.
How so?
Look, to enroll for a marathon, you don't expect my grandmother in the village or to be able to afford a cost to doing that. What I would expect her to do now is also to be able to rally support at the grassroots, mashinani, and like what we saw with Kenyans for Kenyans. We saw people coming around and saying, all I have is chicken, take this. We need to take this campaign beyond just the confines of Nairobi, which is one county, to the 47 counties in this country. Go in and talk and win the buy-in from women and from people within the country. And the day that I will see somebody coming to the First Lady and saying, I don't have anything much, but what I have, ni hii kuku.
You're really on this.
Shika. Yes, but that's the time that you'll know that, well, it has transcended the boundaries of the elite and has moved to the grassroots.
Yeah, I think your point is made, and I thank you all so much for your opinions today. My favorite part of the show, I get to hear your feedback, so let's take a look at what you've been telling us on at Citizen TV News and at Citizen TV Kenya. All right, here we go. We may not always agree with the courts, but we must learn to respect their rulings without exception. That's on our previous discussion on Wambora's reinstatement. The courts should work towards the protection of constitutional institutions. #Opinion Court. 1. Kenyans have confidence in our courts. 2. Senate impeached Wambora, but he's now reinstated by the court. It is as it is. #Opinion Court. Please respect court orders, otherwise we invite anarchy. #Opinion Court. These court orders are not helping Kenyans but harming the will of the people. #Opinion Court. Still on the Wambora reinstatement. The judiciary has the role of maintaining law and order in the country. If we don't respect their rulings, where are we heading to? #Opinion Court. Now on the First Lady. At First Lady, Kenya is doing a very wonderful job for our mothers in Kenya. She should keep it up. It is not all about political mileage. She is doing what is best as a woman, using her status to help the less fortunate women. Still on the First Lady. At First Lady, Kenya has achieved a lot. This will have a great impact at Uhuru Kenyatta. Margaret Kenyatta scored for Kenya. Mothers are winning big. And a final one here. Maternal health care is a serious problem but has often been ignored. Beyond Zero campaign goes beyond Kenya. I thank you all so much for your feedback this evening. Of course, please do keep sending it to us. We'll interact with you on social media once we leave this stage. Thank you for watching Citizen Live at 9. I am Ann Kiguta. Thank you to Professor Edward Kisiangani, Paula Char, and Dr. Makodingo for joining us this evening. Have a blessed Easter weekend, and I'll see you next week right here. Bye-bye.